You are now watching an agorist production by We Are Change Texas Hill Country and Truth Exposed Radio, coming to you from Austin, Texas at Brave New Books.
Any type of dogma, but rather trying to expand our minds into some new areas that I think are important for the inquisitive, anarcho-libertarian, voluntarist-minded people to pursue their path to freedom. We also define agorism. Agorism is a philosophy that I wholeheartedly believe in, that Adam and John both push as well, by this guy Samuel Konkin, who wrote the book New Libertarian Manifesto. It was his ideas and others before him, but he really put them together specifically on how to build counter-economic institutions, whether that means counter the mainstream media with entrepreneurial media, independent media, small bookstores like this, community gardens. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can do business and remove money from that status economy and inject it into a newer economy that we all hope, as we build these ideas and implement the ideas of freedom cells that John was talking about, it'll be easier. So that's, in the strategic sense, that's my goal, is to use agorism as the strategy towards a more free world, and at the same time promoting these ideas of self-reflection and awareness. When it comes to agorism and the New Libertarian Manifesto, Samuel Konkin discussed the 3 A's of agorism, because he said agorism is anarchy in action. So the ideas of agorism aren't, I mean, there's 2 books written about it, there's a couple of other, 2 books by Konkin, there's a couple of other small pieces, but the philosophy is relatively thin, it's small, because it's a philosophy of action. That's the whole point. You know, there's no need to really continue to theorize on it. The idea is put it into action. You know, it's when you decide you're tired of just being an anarchist behind the computer or a libertarian behind the computer and in theory and in books, and you actually want to live it and put it into action. That's when agorism comes into play. So in agorism, you have the agora, which is the marketplace. You know, it comes from the Greek, the market. So you have market interaction, the freedom in that sense. Anarchy, self-governance, self-rule, we all understand that. And then action, taking the steps to bring these things to fruition through counter-economic activity. And I also propose that we add a 4th A to this, and that is awareness, mindfulness, in all of our consciousness, in all of our actions. You know, if we, again, going back to what I was saying, if we don't do this deeper work, then we're going to end up, we can still create anarchist communities and panarchist villages and all these utopian things that we believe will happen, but until we do that deeper work, we're going to end up, it may take 1 generation or 2 generations, but we're going to find some of these same issues arising. And I'm not saying we can create a perfect world and that we're all going to be blissed out all the time or anything like that, but we can definitely work on the issues, whether they come from parents or the state, institutions, or whatever's in your environment, different trauma. I'm totally open about my trauma and my need for healing, and I think that's why I find this to be really valuable, because the more I speak out about these ideas, I feel like other people feel more inclined and more open to talk about the things that they need to heal from, and we don't have to all walk around and act like everything's okay, because there's a lot of fucked up shit that happens in the world, and some of it happens to us, and we have to heal from that. I'm going to read you a paragraph here from the book. I think that will help summarize some of these ideas, and then I want to talk to you about explorative agnosticism, which is a term we came up to define our position as far as the spiritual sense, and also healing. We have a chapter on conscious healing, which talks about some of my favorite topics, including ayahuasca, psilocybin, looking to plant medicine for healing. So this is from that chapter, Conscious Healing. By choosing to reflect on our doubts, fears, insecurities, hopes, and dreams, we can come to know ourselves more deeply and begin to understand the ways we are limiting ourselves. Thus, our knowledge and application of freedom is more full. How can we truly know what freedom means to us as people if we do not understand ourselves? The truth is, we cannot. We may educate ourselves in the failures of the state, and maybe even overthrow that state through competition and peaceful resistance, but we will find ourselves facing similar conditions within a couple hundred years or so if we continue to operate on the same level of consciousness. If we do not deal with the root causes of humanity's pains, then we are only applying band-aids to a gaping wound that desperately needs healing. Imagine a post-revolution world without a spiritual transformation. Educated group of anarchists running around battling each other's egos due to lack of empathy and unresolved internal conflict. The revolution without healing is a recipe for disaster. We need to evolve forward, not continue to go in circles. That's all I'm saying. So that's what you'll find in the book. I'm going to go ahead and pass this around while I continue talking. If you're interested in keeping in touch, finding out more about the book, or ordering yourself a copy, please write your information. And like I said, you can download it for free whenever you want. So one of the other things I try to do in some of the essays, because the first part of the book, first 10 chapters, are basically laying out all these different points from the importance of peaceful parenting. We have an essay called Today's Inner Child Will Save the Future. Tomorrow, basically talking about that inner child, the importance of staying connected to your inner child, healing those inner traumas, and also the power of imagination. Just being an anarchist, being even a libertarian or voluntarist in this world requires imagination, and a lot of people lack imagination. They've had that beaten out of them throughout their life. You know, they're told from birth they can achieve whatever they want, but then after a period of time, your parents and society says, okay, it's time to give up on your dreams and become a real adult now. You know, that's the message that we're telling people. Give up on your dreams and just join the rest of us because there's no hope for it. And so after a while, you stop believing. You stop looking at the world as just, you know, every day I wake up and I feel filled with wonder that there is so much opportunity for me to create. You know, what can I create that day? What can I, you know, who can I connect with? What ideas can I be a part of? And I see it as just this amazing, joyous opportunity. I don't wake up like, holy shit, the New World Order is coming. Like, oh my God. I see all those realities. I acknowledge them, but I don't let them control me. And by being in control of my own state of mind, then I am free, regardless of what they're doing. And that's what we have to remember. So we're trying to bring together the ideas that will show that there is anarchist tendencies in spirituality, and specifically my experience. In Chapter 8, I talk about my experience going to prison. I spent 18 months behind bars over a period of 4 years. First a year, then 5 months, then 4 more months. For drug possession. This was 10 years ago. 10 years sober. This year. And that experience, though, led me to where I am now. I discovered meditation while I was locked up. I spent so much time writing and trying to understand my decisions and what had got me to that point, and the reason I was drowning myself in drugs and just trying to fill these various holes that I had and recognizing where those holes were. And so it's been a long journey from that point to then waking my mind up to this cloud, looking at the world, seeing the drug war, looking at all these issues, becoming an activist, before I realized everything I was experiencing then was shaping me for this message right now. And one of the things I experienced in that time is the power of solitude, the importance of solitude. There have been 2 times in my life that I've been given opportunities to experience deep states of solitude, and one of them was while I was locked up in that situation. And anybody who's been locked up for more than, well, even if you've been in there for a night, but if you've definitely been in there for more than a couple weeks or a couple months, you know that it can be a difficult thing to deal with. Adam knows how to spin it the right way, though. You've got to go inside your mind. You see people all around you that are just, I met plenty of good people that are still going in and out of that system. You know, they're not ready to get out of that cycle. But I decided I was. And I wasn't going to go any further than this. I'd already kind of seen, I got caught with crystal meth, so I was facing felony time. I knew I'd screwed myself over. You know, I was 20 years old, and just like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? I need to figure this shit out. So I chose to use that time to just write and write and write, understand my mind, get into my head. I had my grandmother and my mom send me books on meditation, Zen, and just different things. I was really using that as an opportunity to learn and to become a better person and to get through that. So fast forward to the second time I get sent back, because I didn't quite get it after a year for some reason. I started plotting on what I was, for one, I was determined, this is it, I'm done. Like, I have to get this, I can't keep coming back to this place. Like, this is not, like, some people, and I've met these people, like, they're 40, 50 years old, these dudes just accept it as a consequence of their life, that they go out and party and live a crazy life, and occasionally they get caught and they spend 6 months to a year, 2 years of their life in prison, and they get out and they go do the same thing, and they're totally fine with that. They're just stuck in that mentality, you know, and they're in that, they're institutionalized. And so I was seeing that and seeing all these examples, like, this could be me, this could be me, you know, really, and also seeing people my age, or when I was younger, experiencing the flip side of this, seeing them getting written angry letters from their children and trying to use that to them, like, your kids are going to be in here like I am if you don't start changing your ways. Like, you have the power. The same thing with peaceful parenting. You have the power to shape those next generations. And so I started really contemplating, what can I do when I'm free? When I finally get through all this, I really started to jog every single day. Once I was able to go outside and get on the track, I just would use that every day as like a mental meditation. Like, every mile was one day closer to home, and I just remember, like, okay, I'm getting there, I'm getting there. And just using that as a strengthening part of that experience. And I decided that when I got through with all this, when I finally got on probation and parole and everything that I would end up doing, that I would take a journey to really celebrate being free. And I had friends that train hopped and, you know, hitchhiked and things like that, so I thought about that for a while. And then I started getting into biking, biking everywhere. I bike everywhere, and I've been doing that for 5 years or so now. And I decided I'm going to take a bike tour. I'm just going to travel around the country. I'm going to volunteer on farms through wolfing, and I'm going to just be out there, just celebrate being free, being done with this. And that's exactly what I did. On January 3rd, 2011, I left Houston, came through Austin. I spent 3 months on the road, traveling across Texas into New Mexico, just volunteering on farms, camping out, and having the best, most crazy, stressful time of my life. And it really changed me. And those 2 experiences really taught me the value of having time to reflect on, again, on who you are, what it is you're pursuing. You know, I think we all generally understand that we want freedom. We want more freedom than we have now. We want to feel free. We don't want to feel restricted. We want to feel like we can do whatever we want. We don't want to harm anybody. But what does it mean in a deeper sense to be free and to want free? To want that freedom? I think that that involves a lot of personal, individual work. I can't tell you what that's going to look like for you. Even if we can all say we're all anarchists, we're all volunteerists, we're all libertarians, we all generally believe these same ideas. Try to put us all in the same house, and we're still going to have a lot of different ways on how we live and what we think freedom really looks like. So it's important for us to spend that time. You know, in the book, we make a comment to the effect that if you're spending all of your time alone, that might be an unhealthy thing, and maybe it's time to go out there and get involved and meet more people and get your ideas out there and network and really grow in those ways. And if at the opposite of that spectrum is that you're always surrounding yourself with people because you're afraid to be alone, which, let's be honest, a lot of us are afraid to be alone. You know, I mean, how many of us have been in relationship, whether it's friendship or romantic, just simply because you're afraid of what's going to happen if you shut up for 5 minutes and listen to what your mind has to say. But I'll tell you what, if you meditate for 5 minutes every single day, you'd be amazed at the insights that will start coming to you. You'd be amazed at the things that you start remembering, and I really do remembering. We're putting ourselves back together. Putting ourselves back together and remembering what it's like to be free people, because it's been a long time since we've had access to that freedom other than in our minds. I'm going to move it along real quick now. I don't know how long I've been talking. Just a couple other ideas that I want to touch on briefly that we go into more in depth in the book. For me, my type of anarchy is panarchy. Panarchy is basically the idea that we could all live under various governing bodies side by side. And through the internet, you don't even necessarily need to live in the same place. You know, essentially, that I could be governed, I could live next to you, but be living under a separate government, a different government, maybe a self-governance. So, panarchy is kind of controversial because it essentially says that, hey, anarchists of all stripes, people who want freedom of all stripes, let's put down the bullshit, focus on the common ground, and go towards that. It's essentially saying that at this point, what's most important is to outcompete and to build the next stage, not to argue about what all the social arrangements or economic arrangements are going to look like when we get there, if we ever do get there.